Hello everyone, my name is Steven and welcome to Storytime. Today, we're going to be reading some malicious compliance stories, tales where following the rules can lead to some just desserts. And let me just say, if you're not already subscribed to Storytime, please consider doing so. But with that being said, let's sit back, relax, and listen to some captivating Reddit stories. Take out my trash? You got it! I work as a route driver in the beverage delivery industry, mainly targeting bars and convenience stores. Needless to say, after years of doing this, I've run into more examples of the Peter principle than I can count. It seems like every town has one. That one manager who is either too trashy, too witchy, or too incompetent to rise into the upper echelons of regional management. After 15 years lording over their sad little gas station kingdom, they've become frustrated, nitpicky, bitter, and downright witchy towards their staff and customers. 'Cause what else are they going to do? Recently, one of our direct competitors absorbed another smaller local distributor and as a result ended up biting off a little more than they could chew. Too many new deliveries and too many new products made the skeleton crew they had run for years all but collapse. Seasoned drivers who have known and worked alongside for years began dropping like flies. As a result, the company began hiring anything with a pulse and a commercial driver's license. Coolers started becoming messy as product wasn't condensed, was being put in the wrong spot, or just left on the floor entirely. Well, last Tuesday rolls around and it is once again my time to endure the weekly 30 minutes of heck. I roll up to the gas station and truck in my 5 carts worth of product. As always, Karen's totally displeased with the order that the salesman placed and she okayed just yesterday, so I endure the requisite 5 minutes of complaining while she checks the order in. I'm wheeling the first cart away after the check-in when I hear Karen's shrill voice come cracking through the cooler door. "Clean up your crap, I have inventory tomorrow." I've been doing this for years and I take great pride in my work in customer service. I'm super particular about organization and product rotation, and I've developed quite the reputation amongst my customers as the one guy that you don't have to babysit. Everyone but Karen agrees. I get in and get out. My drinks are condensed and organized by product and expiration date. I cut no corners. Well, on this day, I had a small order that was running a bit ahead of schedule, so after putting all my product away, I spent another 20 minutes or so cleaning and organizing the other guy's mountain of product. By the time I was done, I had amassed a huge stack of broken down cardboard and shrink wrap from all the product he had haphazardly thrown on the shelf. I was somehow able to cram all this trash into the one box that I myself had brought in and headed out. Of course, Karen is there waiting in the back room while she does her reviews for the upcoming inventory. "Geez, took you long enough." "Yeah, I took a bit of time cleaning and organizing your cooler, but it looks good in there." "Well, it better after all the time you spent in there. I've been waiting on you. I still have to do my cooler reviews." I tossed the box full of cardboard on the pile by the back door and started heading out. Excuse me? Company policy says that you have to take your own trash out." Now, I'm not a spiteful guy, quite the opposite actually. I'm usually quite chipper and polite. Something about her smugness and lack of appreciation finally just made me snap. I turn around, walk to the trash pile, grab the box full of cardboard, and without breaking eye contact, I turn it over and vigorously shake its contents all over the floor. Cardboard and shrink wrap went everywhere. I had really packed that stuff in there and it took a bit of effort to get it all out. This is the only box I brought in, and you should know you scanned it in. The other stuff is your trash I cleaned up in your cooler. Have a good day. The combined look of rage and smugness on her face as I walked by with a poop-eating grin was enough to make the rest of my day. I told my boss about it when I got back at the end of the day. He got a good chuckle out of it since everyone else hates her as well. Of course, she called and complained, but of course my boss only responded with, "Well, he did what you told him to do. Nothing I can do about it, sorry." I love my company. Don't disrespect a professional, man. When somebody comes in to get the job done and they get the job done and they go above and beyond what they were even expected to do, just try to be appreciative to some degree about how they went up and out of their way to make things a little bit nicer for you and your store.
Open this freaking door, you four-eyed twit!
Okie dokie. I deliver home heating oil in a very rural and mostly flat part of the UK. In my delivery area, there are many large drainage channels, or dikes in the local lingo. The roads are often very narrow and single track and frequently run alongside these dikes separated only by a narrow grass verge, no safety barrier. Anywho, this one day in the depths of winter, it was below freezing. There had been a light spattering of snow and there was a thin scum of ice on the water in the dike. I had just finished doing a customer's delivery and was winding in the hose prior to collecting payment and departing. My truck was completely blocking the road as there was nowhere for me to pull it off the road. We're limited by the length of the delivery hose. Blocking the road is common and legally acceptable as long as we work quickly and safely. So I was just waiting for the customer to finish writing the check for their oil when this large Mercedes car pulls up behind my truck and the driver immediately starts leaning on the horn and shouting and swearing at me to move that freaking truck out of the way now! My usual response when faced with similar behavior is to blank the swearer and pretend they don't exist. Being 6'3" and 285 pounds helps keep most people at bay. I ignored Mr. Shouty Man and finished up with my customer. The customer said to me, "Ignore him, he's well known in the village for being a bit rude." I said goodbye and I got into my truck. As I was putting away my paperwork prior to driving off, I happened to glance on the driver's side mirror, the same side of the truck as the dike, and saw Mr. Shouty Man storming up the side of the truck with a tire iron in his hand. Oh crap, thinks I, and immediately hit the central locking button, locking myself in the cab. Next thing I know, Mr. Shouty Man has climbed up onto the step, is hanging off the mirror with one hand and brandishing the tire iron with the other, all while shouting, "Open this door, you four-eyed cat!" I wear spectacles for driving. Oh, the wit of the man. Cue malicious compliance. He told me to open the door, so I did. But as I did so, I kicked it open. He lost his grip on the mirror arm and was flung backwards into the dike up to his chest in freezing cold, filthy water. I calmly started my engine and drive off. As I left, I looked in the mirror to see this guy floundering around chest deep in the icy water, dressed in a business suit. I called the customer who had witnessed everything, and happily they said they would give a statement to whoever needed one, confirming I acted in self-defense. Then I made a fairly difficult call to my boss and told him what had happened, and he said, "I'll await his call with interest." No bollocking, nothing. When I got back to the yard that evening, I asked my boss what had happened, and apparently no call of complaint was made that day or ever. I think this guy got off easy, honestly. Coming up to a really big guy in a vehicle with a tire iron and the only thing you get is landing in icy water? I think Mr. Shouty Man should count his lucky stars that all he had to deal with was icy, filthy water up to his chest and not something worse dealing with this big dude. I outlast my family in a silence competition. Context: I will freely admit when I was younger, and even now, I like to talk. A lot. I was also a pretty sensitive kid. One night, I'm having dinner with my family at a restaurant, and I start going on. My family liked teasing me about this, but knowing that I'd get in trouble for complaining, an example, being called too sensitive, I just simmered. That was until someone, I don't know what, said something along the lines of, "Maybe you shouldn't talk so much," or just, "You talk so much." Cue the malicious compliance. I straight up stopped talking immediately. They guessed what I was doing and tried everything they could to get me to talk, figuring it'd be easy to do with 7 or 8-year-old me. I was determined to succeed. Someone needed a cup from my side of the table, I hand it to him without a word. Someone asked a question, I nod, shake my head, or just shrug. The server asked how the meal was, big ol' thumbs up, and so on and so forth. My sister, about 11 or 12 at the time, tried to see if she could break me by also not talking, hoping I'd mess up, but she ended up breaking not 5 minutes after. Eventually, our meal ended and we went to the car. When I still refused to talk, my mom finally begged me to talk, asking to hear my beautiful voice. The jokes about my talkativeness petered out after that. Poor kid, he just wanted to talk about some stuff, he just loved talking. Because I know when I was a kid and I got teased for certain things, it really kind of affected me too. And there's nothing wrong with being a little talkative, and a lot of kids have a little bit of attention problems. It's fine, it's normal, you just let them talk. My boss said I didn't go above and beyond. So I was a bartender at a small chain restaurant. I'm also a student and I hope to be a pharmacist one day. As such, I was looking to make a career change from bartender to pharmacy technician so I can get to know the industry. I had made this intention very clear to my boss. I even told him in my interview. I had given this bartending job a solid year. This place had a very high turnover rate. After only a year, I was the most experienced bartender there. If that doesn't indicate how much stuff this job makes you put up with, I don't know what will. However, I thought my boss and I were close. I asked him for a letter of recommendation so I could start applying for pharmacy technician jobs. In this conversation, I basically gave him a 2-month notice. More than fair. This dude had the audacity to say, "I'm not sure you earned a letter of recommendation. You really don't go above and beyond." I don't go above and beyond. I once babysat his kids for free when his babysitter had an emergency and there was no other manager to replace him. I've missed study groups and extra credit opportunities to cover shifts when needed. I've stayed overnight by myself to deep clean the bar. Oh boy, was I mad. I went to the corporate website and printed out the job description for bartenders. Was it enlightening? Turns out, most of the restaurants have hosts, bar backs, and janitors that pick up the phone and do most of the cleaning. We don't, and the only cleaning our job description specifies is glassware. Job description in hand, I got to work, or lack thereof. Phones ringing? Not my job. Floors need to be mopped? Sucks. Every time my boss asked me to perform a task, I'd furrow my brows and start intensely reading my job description before answering, "Nope, too above and beyond for me." The best part is, I'm only one of 4 bartenders in a restaurant that's open from 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. every day. They physically couldn't afford to fire me without all the other bartenders leaving as well. This lack of control really bothered him, and I saw him start to realize how badly he messed up. But I wasn't done yet. Apparently, according to corporate policy, we have to make every drink using jiggers. This almost doubles the time it takes to make drinks. Up until then, I and everyone else had chosen to ignore this policy. But then we had a party of over 100 come in, and both of the coworkers I was supposed to be working with called off. This seems like the perfect time to abide by corporate policy. I started painstakingly making every drink with a jigger one by one. Drinks barely trickled out and complaints soon started to trickle in. My manager asked me what the F was I thinking. I pulled up my job description and told him that going against corporate's wishes was a little too above and beyond. His shoulders slumped in defeat. We both knew there was nothing he could do. He started doing all the bartending on the surface well himself and let me casually take the seats. Best part is I get a % off all of the drinks that he made. I got a job soon after despite my lack of a letter of recommendation. 2 more of my coworkers did too. According to my last remaining coworker, they are still struggling to find solid employees. He still texts me often asking to cover shifts. I'm glad OP was able to get a little bit of payback here. I feel like it's just kind of common courtesy to write a recommendation letter if you've just done your job and you haven't done anything unsatisfactory. This boss was like purposefully trying to keep OP from advancing in his career and his aspirations just to try and keep him bartending here because he's short-handed. Good for OP on this one. Less talking, more working? Lol, got it. My manager busted into the painter's booth this Monday. I'm the only painter, so I keep track of all the parts that are and aren't painted. This is important. He started going on about how there wasn't enough parts coming out finished. Mind you, I'm on schedule. Then he said, "You need to talk less with your coworkers and work harder. Be more like a machine." So for this past week, I haven't talked to any of my coworkers. No good morning, no info on painted and non-painted parts, nothing. Today, Saturday, my manager came and asked me to stop doing what I was doing because I had made chaos on the production floor because they didn't know which parts were painted and which ones weren't. I just told him, "I thought you told me to be more like a machine." He just said, "Please just start talking to the others again." Sure, it was pretty tame, but man was it sweet. Just a short, sweet little button story at the end here. I enjoyed it, and it's the perfect form of malicious compliance, following their request to the T that leads to hectic chaos and regret for the person who even decided to mutter those words. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today, so thank you for listening to the Storytime channel. If you like what you heard, please consider subscribing, and please leave any feedback in the comments below. I'm always working on developing this craft as I share these stories with you lovely people. Thank you all again for listening and watching the Storytime channel.